So today we are talking about the GMWD hack squat leg press machine. It's a combo piece. It is in all black, which is unlike most of their models. It's also a little tighter, better for storage and just taking up a little less real estate. So we're going to talk about how I've kind of stepped away from some of the big three lifts as I've been recovering from a pretty gnarly back injury. And this machine is letting me do some stuff a little safer and take care of my pain issues as these things heal up. So let's talk about it. First things first, we'll talk about packaging and delivery and all that stuff very quickly, only because I think this is the fourth or fifth GMDW machine that I've purchased in the past couple of years. The packaging is always really good bubble wrap, good styrofoam, nothing damaged coming in through. I can think of one time where I was missing a part on one side of another machine, and I sent them some info and they immediately shipped me out another one very quickly. It came very fast and I was able to put it together and keep going. When it comes to putting together the machine, build quality, instructions, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. The instructions are very good. All the parts are labeled individually in accordance with the steps you're going to use to put it together. So it's fairly simple to follow. Some of the holes and the threads of where bolts are going are not perfectly in line, but with a little wiggling around, everything came together pretty nice. Most of this stuff is like 14 gauge steel or whatever you want to call it. It's not the most beefy. When I was putting it together, as it was getting assembled, I was a little skeptical of how solid and firm things would feel as the machine is being used. But when I actually started using it, it feels super stable. The linear bearings glide very well. Range of motion for me and my height, I'm about 5'11", just short of 6 foot. And everything moves pretty good for my build, and we can talk about some of the differences that might be happening if you're taller or shorter. When it comes to using this machine in hack squat mode, there is this adjustable safety spotter bar that goes into this hole here. And even on its lowest setting, it was kind of bottoming out quite a bit. So I just took it out. And for me personally, I can get really low and almost bottom out. But also if I absolutely fail a rep, I'll have this very small window where I can just set things down and crawl out of it. So for my height, this works really well. If someone was shorter, this might cause more issues and maybe you would bottom out a little earlier, but I have seen people build platforms, little boxes that they can put on this adjustable plate, even moving it up and down, trying to find the best angle. If I put it all the way up, that's usually going to feel pretty good for me in hack squat mode. When I go to the leg press side, I usually go all the way back. And now we'll talk about some of the leg press issues that I'm personally running into. So switching from hack squat mode to leg press mode is ridiculously fast. I like to put this guy all the way at the bottom, clicks into place, and then I crank the adjustment knob all the way down so it's nice and sturdy. This plate just pops out. There's nothing really holding it on. It just kind of slides from this tube into this hole. Maybe it would seem like it would be super rickety, but honestly it does pretty well. I'm gonna put my back plate on, and then I'm gonna put the seat on here. This little red tab gets pulled and it flips up. That's really quick. For most people, this will probably work fine, but I have some limited hamstring mobility, and the angle of this plate is not the best for me. There's a lot of different models where you can adjust the angle of this in multiple stages. This is the best, not just the best, this is the only setting for this. So this doesn't really allow me to get super low. So there's a couple of changes that I did to modify this, and we'll talk about this now. So I bought this squat wedge on Amazon. I thought this was going to be like a plastic wedge, but it ends up being a high density foam pad. And by adding this to the foot plate, You can increase the angle or decrease the angle of your ankle when you do a leg press. This is kind of similar to putting on Olympic weightlifting shoes or squatting, back squatting, front squatting with a squat wedge to reduce the stress on your ankles. That way you can squat a little deeper without your hips pronating forward or moving your ankles out of alignment, putting stress on the low back, which is exactly what I'm trying to avoid as I'm recovering from these multiple back surgeries that I've had this year. So now we have the seat and the back pad in place, but I need a little more low back support. So I use this ab mat to put at the bottom here. It's a bit extreme, but it also kind of helps increase the angle of the hip opening. And when I get down in place, I can kind of lean back a little bit more. In February, I had an L4, L5 discectomy. It did not go very well. I had another procedure for like an epidural steroid shot, also did not go very well. And then in early May, I had an L4, L5 lumbar fusion. And I'm still having some nerve damage issues with that, but discs, hardware, vertebrae, totally good. I had a fractured L5, so I was pretty jacked up. So as I press into this back pad without this ab mat, it just opens a little bit more from that natural S curve of the lower lumbar spine. So when I put this guy on, and then I place my feet on that wedge pad, move it out, I can get pretty deep, especially if I pull myself in this bottom position and then up. Clicks into place. It's not the quietest machine in the world, but I had a leg press hack squat machine before this. It was the Force USA, and it rolls on these like nylon rollers, and a lot of people like them. A lot of the commercial units you'll see in like these bigger gyms, they move on nylon rollers, but I just think the quality of the rollers of the Force USA were garbage. It was very clunky. It was not smooth at all. It was very quiet, but this works way better. Even if it's a little louder, I'm usually playing music or listening to a podcast. Doesn't bother me. I got this stuff in the garage. All our bedrooms on the opposite side of the house. It's not like I'm going to wake anybody up if I'm working out really early in the morning or late at night. So with these modifications, they work really good for me. You don't have to do them, but just some suggestions if you're having issues with like low back stuff and you want to take the most precautions as possible. Real quickly on weight storage and weight capacity. These pins say 250 pounds. I'm not sure if that means 250 per side or 250 total. I would imagine it's probably 250 total. So if these two pins are 250, these also say 250. I guess technically you could have 500 pounds on this, but that's only if it's both sides. There's really only one set of storage pins here just for like to set extra weights. I wish there were two more, but it is what it is. They do have models that have a lot more storage, but are also bigger and a lot more expensive. I think I've had a 45 on each of these, two 45s on each side of these, and maybe a 25. I'm not going super heavy on leg press. That's usually where this is probably going to make the biggest difference. If somebody wants to load up 1,000 pounds, you have no business buying an $800 or $900 leg press anyway. But I'm doing sets of maybe 16 to 20 reps on the leg press, a little more high rep, trying to get as much range of motion as possible for myself anyway. And I've had a decent amount of weight on here for me. I don't plan on getting too much heavier. I'm not in that point in life where I'm trying to move the most weight one time. I'm trying to move a decent amount of weight quite a few times. On the hack squat machine, I might have done a 45 on each of these, maybe one or two 45s on each of these. That can be kind of heavy for hack squats, and especially the way that I'm doing hack squats. It's a little more of a Tom Platz approach where my knees are coming very far forward, getting a good stretch of the quad, and then coming up. The whole time during the operation, whether you got no weight on it or a bunch of weight on it, it's the same smoothness. It feels really good. So if you didn't plan on using a whole lot of weight, you could probably just not even put these on and just load these pins up underneath, and you could basically take almost 1.5 feet off of each side. It would be even more compact. I've got other weight storage all over the place in the rest of the gym, so it's not like this is my only place to store plates. But again, I think this does pretty well, and push comes to shove, you could always add another pin yourself if you wanted to drill a hole and put it in there, but it works pretty good for me. Another really helpful feature for me is that this has a really nice beefy handle in the front and 2 wheels in the back. That way when I go to clean the gym, if I want to move some stuff around, take everything out and get a good deep clean, or if I just want to make some adjustments, it's fairly easy to move. It's not light. It's not like it's a light machine that can be easily moved, but you can move it. I've had a couple of machines where there's no way to really move it, and it's just awkward as heck. And especially somebody with low back issues that creep up every once in a while, that's not something I want to be messing with. So having a handle to where I can just roll it out of the gym if I want to, move it to the other side, super helpful, and it feels very solid. With the extra modifications that I've made for the leg press, I think it works pretty good for me, especially being able to do somewhat of a compound lift that also keeps the hamstrings and the glutes moving. But I mainly bought this for the hack squat function because I wanted to be able to do really big range of motion squats without axial loading on my back. And with this machine, as you know, with probably a lot of other machines that are fairly similar, the smoothness of the linear bearings moves really good. I can manipulate where my feet go on the plate, and I can kind of target parts of the muscle a little bit differently. But most importantly, I'm not screwing up my back by back squatting or front squatting. It's not that those lifts are bad, but right now they're bad for me. And I'm just kind of staying away from them. I'll front squat a little bit, but I want to make sure I'm staying safe, but still stimulating some muscle so I don't lose all of my strength and all of my muscle mass that it has taken probably close to 10, 12 years for me to build. So GMWD customer service, like I said, this is probably the 4th or 5th machine I've bought for them over the years. And most of the time I have my doubts on how companies will take care of people, so I'm a little suspect. There was a machine maybe 2 or 3 machines ago that was missing. It had the wrong handle. I got sent 2 left handles instead of a left and right. Messaged them on Instagram, order number, boom. I had it probably within a week, and they never hesitated to take care of an issue if I had it. Most of these companies are, building, manufacturing stuff overseas, and that's why they're so affordable. And they used to have a reputation that was fairly crappy. Titan Fitness is a good example where years ago, people just stopped buying from them because they didn't know what they were going to get, and they didn't know if it was even going to be able to be put together when they got it. So I think most brands have started to fix that now, especially for their residential budget-friendly stuff. But this guy works really well. I do want to get some sort of a pendulum squat, maybe even some sort of a kind of a hammer strength like chest press machine, because this gym is going to be more of a bodybuilding centric isolation type of thing. If you want to stick around for some more reviews or ideas or techniques using this stuff, feel free to subscribe. And if you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. But I'm looking forward to growing this space into a more of a isometric focused type of place, because if I go to my other gym, it's all functional fitness, and all my clients and members, that's basically what we do there. But I've always had a passion for this type of stuff as well. And especially as we get older, it's good to start mixing some of this stuff in. So if you're interested in this machine, follow the link in the description. If you're interested in reviews for other things, drop it in the comments. Temple of Gains has got some pretty interesting stuff, some light commercial stuff that it might be cool to play with. Pendulum squat, chest press machine. A plate-loaded leg extension leg curl. This is probably the best one that I have, but I would definitely maybe entertain the idea of getting a plate stack selectorized version. So if you have any interesting models that you would like me to take a look at, drop them in the comments. Other than that, we'll see you in the next one.